Well, hardly a day can go by, and probably not even an hour, before you hear someone blurt out some kind of cuss word. Now, I don't know what you think about this, but maybe you're one who actually lets things slip out of your mouth too. I don't know who may be watching here, but I want to challenge you if you end up cussing, saying something. I want to challenge you here today. I want you to consider some things that I'm saying. Consider what the Bible says about this, because I want to address this subject because it's something that is so common. It's something that, you might not be able to count a handful of people that don't cuss, that don't use some swear word, that don't use some kind of profanity. Either it would be the H word, the D word, the S word, the A word, the F word. You could go into all kinds of different, I don't want to do it on this video. I don't want to spell out the words or say them. There are words that are used that everyone accepts to be what is considered a curse word. And sometimes these words change. Now, you have to understand something initially here first. You have to understand that letters are just a part of words, and words are a part of language. Letters are not, they don't have any morality about them. There are no moral letters. A is not moral and B immoral. The letters are letters. Okay? Just like lines and circles are not moral, but when you combine them, they can represent something immoral. So letters that spell out words can represent something that is considered bad by most people, or to be a swear word. Now, there's different terms that are used for what we're talking about, what I'm talking about today. As I said, cuss words, curse words, swear words, some say oaths, and you could talk about minced oaths, and I'll address this in a little bit here too. Just the word profanity is another word that's used, and it just refers to this type of speech, this type of talking that so many people do. And it seems that once you do this, you are going to continue to do this. So this kind of language, this sort of filthy language that you may take part in, is going to probably increase once you start doing it. So, I have heard it from so many people, even people that claim to be Christian, even people that are more conservative. We hear curse words from many commentators. I heard it on a commercial tonight. When I was looking at something, I heard it on the commercial. And it was supposed to be a commercial helping you to consider something that was important. So we think somehow that cursing adds something to it. Why do people curse? Why do people think that it's necessary to use those words? It's almost as if they think that if they really have a strong point, they've got to use a curse word because it just has more power to it or something. But that's wrong thinking. It doesn't. And guess what? Jesus said, you're going to give an account. Now, I'm going to get into some of these things a little bit more. And we could talk about this from a number of different levels. We could go into different things in the Old Testament and the New Testament. I want to focus on, I think I'm going to do this in two parts. I'm going to focus on more New Testament things in this first part, and then maybe go back and give some Old Testament, though I might reference it some in this. But there's, I remember as a teenager, someone asked me, where does the Bible say that you can't curse or it's wrong to say a certain word? Well, there's a lot of things that the Bible doesn't say directly, but it clearly is meaning something that applies directly. And, for instance, the Bible doesn't say, a lot about particular things, especially if they didn't exist during the time the Bible was written. Now, God can prophesy. He prophesied things. He prophesied the name Cyrus hundreds of years before he was even born. But most often, the people who God inspired to write His Word were writing from their own knowledge and tried to describe things that they saw and understood as best they could, like John did in Revelation. So, what I wanted to do in this first part here about this subject, which is needed to be addressed, is to just challenge you, like I was challenged, to say, where does the Bible talk about this? Well, I'm going to show you some specific verses. Now, there's all kinds of verses you could look at that are secondary verses that would have application to this subject. I don't want to take time to get into all of those verses, although there's many good verses that would apply. But I want to specifically take you to verses that have to do with why you shouldn't cuss, why you shouldn't use words that are foul language, that are filthy language, that are called profanity. And we all know what they are. You might argue over some of them, whether they fit on a list or not, but we know these words. We hear them so often. In fact, sometimes these words, when they're used, can almost diminish the meaning, and it actually does. For instance, let me tell you one that is not a curse word, but its meaning is diminished when people use it so freely. The word hell is not a curse word. The word hell it represents a place. In fact, it will be cast into the lake of fire. It's a place of judgment. It's a place where God says that Jesus said He prepared hell for the devil and his angels. He didn't prepare it for His crown creation and man. But any person who doesn't accept Jesus Christ will end up in this place of judgment to pay for their sins because they didn't get forgiveness of their sins. If they don't want that forgiveness, then they'll end up suffering in hell. But you hear people use hell in so many exclamatory ways. And so it sort of diminishes the reality of hell when that happens. And that's also a danger in using words like that. Well, what we're really talking about is exclamations. We're talking about an emotion or an exclamatory comment that you make. So I want to take you to some verses, just like I was challenged, and didn't really have them in my head when I was challenged as a teenager, but I studied then, and I have them for you today to be able to share, that you can use and think about and maybe help you to have speech that is more what it should be and what pleases God. So I don't care if you are just an average person, or if you're a person in leadership. I mean, I hear authorities curse. I've heard policemen curse. In fact, as I've said, when I was in wrongly put into the jail system through the tragedy that happened to me, one of the things that boggled my mind is how the F word could be used as almost any part of speech. I mean, it was F this, and they used it 2 and 3 times in a sentence. Most of the prisoners did. But the police somehow wanted to relate to them, and so one of the things they did when they were around those of us who were in the jail is they would sometimes throw out the F-bomb. And I thought, whoa, what's up with this? Even the lady that was the officer came and did that. And of course, when they may have thought that that's going to help them relate, but it didn't, because they just got mocked. I heard what they said about it when these officers left. So authorities definitely shouldn't be using this language, and the president shouldn't be using it either. But yet you have political people using curse words all the time. When they really want to make a point, they use it, or when they talk about something it shouldn't be. And so this is a subject that needs to be understood better. And it needs to be understood for the Bible. So there's so much to say here. I'm going to have to put it in 2 parts, but I want to start you here. Now, if you want to go to a verse in the Bible, you need to go to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, and that's where I'm going to start. Ephesians 4:29, and it says it pretty clearly here, not secondarily, straight up. It says, "Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth." All right? You can't say it any plainer than that. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification. All right? Interesting how the light changes for some of these things. All right? So don't let any word come out of your mouth that's corrupted. That is one of these words. All right, so that's specific right there. Now, you could go on and you could look even in chapter 5 of Ephesians. You have another word here, or another verse here that says, in summary, that certainly Christians should not be using language that is corrupted. And it says in Ephesians 5:4, something that shouldn't be named among you is filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but instead giving of thanks should be. Now, really what we're talking about when a person curses is a wrong attitude. We're talking about something that really comes from a wrong expression of emotion, a wrong attitude. Now, certainly if you learned vocabulary better, you could say just as strong things about someone by knowing more vocabulary words instead of resorting to some curse word that you may not know what exactly you're meaning by it. A person may not know. You can be much more specific if you know more vocabulary. But that being said, our attitude should not be to pronounce curses on people. That's not what we're supposed to do. In fact, really, when that's our attitude, we're making ourselves a judge. We're really putting ourselves in God's place. So we better be careful about name calling or cursing in what we say and do, because God's going to hold us accountable for all of it. And there shouldn't be any authority doing it for sure. Nobody should, but an authority shouldn't, and political people shouldn't, and the president shouldn't. I mean, I've even heard pastors say things that are cursing, or at least euphemisms, and that's something else I'll address. So think of these verses in Ephesians. Now that's some of the best things you can go to, but there's other verses. You can turn over to the book of Colossians, and you can see in Colossians that there's also good verses there, or that apply to a lot of things. But Colossians chapter 3 is particularly another one of these verses that says it pretty plainly. Okay, Colossians 3:8. Now, in Colossians 3, you've got, just as in Ephesians 4, you have this scenario of what you should put on and what you should put off. What you should put off, be renewed in your mind, and put on. And so this is seen in Colossians 3. So Colossians 3:8 says, "But now you yourselves are to put off all of these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth." Okay? So there you go. You are supposed to put filthy language out of your mouth. That means you don't have it. You're supposed to put it away, put it off. Don't let it come out of your mouth. All right? Now, maybe the reason it comes out of our mouth is because we watch it and listen to it on the programs that we listen to. You can watch movies and stuff, and you can have software or some way to keep out the language that comes in the videos. There are programs that help to do that. But you hear it a lot, and if you start talking that way, and if you talk that way in your home, you're certainly going to do it when you're out around other people. You're going to let a word slip at some point. If you stub your toe, you might let a word slip, but that shouldn't be what's in your mind. It shouldn't be what's in your heart. It'll come out if it is, if you're around it too much. What do you do to your child, or what do you do to a young child who says a curse word? They copy it from an adult, they might get their mouth washed out with soap or be told they can't say it. Well, if children can't say those words, and they shouldn't learn it from adults, but certainly adults shouldn't be doing it. That's not an example to the children. So what are we teaching our children if we speak this way? All right, so those are just some verses, and wow, I really want to get into more of this, but I'm going to give you one more that's really good, the Ephesians 4 and the Colossians 3, but I want to give you one more that's especially good as we get a little further into the New Testament, and we go to 2 Timothy, and in 2 Timothy 2:16, we have Paul addressing the pastor there of the church in Ephesus, Timothy, and he says, "But shun, put away, profane and idle babblings, for they will do what? They will increase to more ungodliness." Now, any kind of profanity, any kind of profane thing, or something that is just talking about something that's not profitable, vain, those things will increase to more ungodliness. And certainly, if you allow cursing in your heart and in your mind and to come out your mouth, it's going to lead to more ungodliness in your life, and more problems, and more emotional problems, because you're exclaiming something, and you're acting like a judge, and you're putting things off on other people that maybe really you're upset about and you need to deal with yourself. So, wow, there's so much more that I want to do here and say, but I think I'm gonna leave it here this time. And I just want to bring up one more verse here just to kind of bring it home, because I want to talk next time about what Jesus says, what Jesus said that addresses this subject. Jesus himself said when he was on the earth. In Matthew, you have him saying certain things in the Sermon on the Mount, and we'll probably look at that next time as well as go to the Old Testament. But there's a particular thing that I mentioned before, and that I'll mention again here. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 36, it says, but Jesus is speaking here. He says, "But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak." Now, that doesn't mean they're not speaking. They're speaking bad words, idle words. They will give an account of it in the day of judgment. Now, certainly that is curse words. It could apply to even, sentences that they say that are bad. But it certainly refers to words that are known as profanity. And it says, you're going to give an account on the day of judgment. And it says in verse 37, "For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." So watch what you say. Even watch what you say to substitute words. Because when you use what is called a euphemism or a minced oath, that is a reference to something that substitutes a word. Like the word God is a word that has a substitute. Gosh is a substitute for God. And golly is a substitute for God. Look it up in the dictionary if you don't believe me. If you were to say Jeez, that is a substitute for Jesus. Now, people use God's name in vain. And of course, that's the third commandment, which I'll deal with more next time. But people do that, and we're not supposed to do that. That's one of the 10. The third commandment is that. And when you use his name in vain, you can do it in an exclamation by saying, "Oh my God," if you say it in an exclamatory way. Now, if you're calling out to him, "Oh my God, please help me," and you're referring to him, that personal relationship with him, that's one thing. But if you're saying it in a way that is exclamatory, then you're using it in vain. And even if you use a substitute word, that's still using it in vain. So you shouldn't use that. And why is it? Why is it that the world, why is it that Hollywood and movies, what do you think is the words that they use that are like the worst? You know, aside from the F word, which is used so commonly, it's not even maybe considered the worst. When they want to go to the highest cursing, they will use the name Christ, or they'll say Jesus Christ in an exclamatory way. Or they will say that as if God wants to condemn something or damn something. And that's what GD stands for when you say it exclamatorily. So I want to get into this more. We'll get into the Old Testament more and even some more what Jesus said. I hope this has challenged you a little bit. I hope you will be more careful about what you say, knowing that you will give an account to God for it. And I hope you like this video, that you'll share it with other people. I want you to like it. I want you to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell the next time so you'll be ready for the next one and part 2 of this subject.